Hello, hello. Welcome back to another crypto and coding wrap up. We are here with Miss Rachel. Oh, and Andy's back as well. We are here with Rachel from Good Ghosting. Andy's back. Don't worry, Andy. We just started. We just got into it. We're here with Rachel from Good Ghosting. Obviously, myself, Patrick from Chainlink Labs, and Andy from Chainlink Labs as well. How's everybody doing today? How are we doing?
Good. I was on mute. I was asking you if you tweeted out about this yet.
Oh, yes, I did send a tweet. I feel like all of these have started with like 10 people, and then at the end it's like 70.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to go give you a retweet. I'm doing great. I got to chat with Rachel a little bit beforehand, and she's festive. Did you warn her, or did she just know?
I might have warned her. Yeah,
I had it. I heard there's going to be a Christmas theme. We're definitely in the festive zone now, right? So I got out my old ugly jumper and hat. Yeah. It's a pretty hot combo when you combine it with the over-ear headphones. But getting some good insulation here. But yeah,
I'm sure. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm like so I wear black whenever I speak, because if like the room is ever like any degree hot at all, I'm just gonna profusely sweat. And like if you were all watching me right now, you would see like how sweaty I'm getting with this hat on. So it's good that we're remote right now.
You got a good camera so we can tell.
I'm gonna go off screen.
I keep my game a little low just so I can keep it on.
Smart. But yeah, so we have Rachel here, who's working on who's one of the co-founders of Good Ghosting. Rachel, we had the luxury of meeting actually before you were even part of Good Ghosting. We synced up because of DevRel stuff, which is crazy. And you were working at Twilio, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So for the people who don't know you, why don't you just give like a little background as who is Rachel? What is Good Ghosting? Where have you been? What's going on?
What's my story? How do I get here? Yeah, cool. So yeah, I've actually done like quite a number of different things. I've been one of those sort of non-traditional people who come into tech. I actually used to be a school teacher. That was like a whole another lifetime ago. But yeah, I did a boot camp back in 2015, worked as a developer for a while. Then I kind of got into started going down the crypto rabbit hole in like 2017 with that whole kind of hype cycle. It was a lot of fun buying a bit of crypto at the beginning of that year. And then of course not selling it in 2018 and losing it all. But it's okay, because I was like, I'm a developer, I'm in it for the tech, so it's all good. I'm just gonna learn some, Solidity, get on Remix, start playing around. And that's when I started to move over into developer relations, which is when we first connected. I think it was just around a year ago, maybe a little bit longer than that. But yeah, I worked for a number of Web3 and Web2 companies. So also worked for Lisk and 3box and Twilio. I believe that's when we connected. But yeah, so I've kind of had a background developing, community building, marketing, streaming, all this type of thing. But had always had an interest in kind of building my own product and building my own company. Very festive. I like
it. Every one of these, you have a different background.
I'm not a developer, so this is what I provide.
So that's I love it.
Cool. It's going to be hard to compete with the background.
What is Good Ghosting? I know nothing. But I want to know what Good Ghosting is.
Wait. She's getting there. Wait. Okay. She's almost there. She's almost there.
No, it's all good. I can dive into that because Good Ghosting is the project I'm working on at the moment. Founded it, part of the kind of founding team there. Basically, the problem that we're trying to solve is that it's sort of a bit hard to motivate yourself to save. For a lot of people, we kind of have good intentions, just like anything, like going to the gym or any of these good financial habits we want to build up. We don't always do it. And certainly like myself, I know just how important it is to actually kind of build up that good financial base. It was something for example, when I was a teacher in London, one of the world's most expensive cities, and not on a great salary, just how painful that could be. Of course, it was quite nice to kind of be able to, build that bit of a buffer in working in tech and get a bit more financial security. And it's just so important for your well-being. So I wanted to build a product that's going to help people kind of build up assets, build up their better financial habits, start to save. Because I've also been in the kind of crypto and DeFi space for a while, and kind of seen the sort of DeFi, since the beginning of it, kind of its inception and it grow. And the idea for good ghosting was actually ideated in like 2020. And sort of at that time, there's a lot of products for people who are kind of really like deep into this space. If you want to like yield farm all day, there's loads of things you can do. There's so many clever ways that you can get those APYs. But I still found for like most people, it's like if you're not really deep down in this rabbit hole, there wasn't like so much for you. You know what I mean? You had to like spend all day studying. It's super confusing. Things like impermanent loss. I didn't even know what it was until it happened to me, and then I was like, oh damn. So I wanted to really build a product that was going to be very accessible and help people, like just develop better financial habits, reach their financial goals, and that's really kind of the vision with good ghosting. So we're trying to build like a savings protocol that's going to like reward people for like good financial habits. So it's pretty much what it does. I can give you a little kind of synopsis of like what our version 1 of our smart contracts, which is out there in the wild. If you're interested.
Ooh, I kind of like this.
Soon.
soon,
Why is it
okay.
ghosting? What is the ghosting of Christmas past and present and financial future?
Yeah, this is a good question. Okay, so I would just caveat this was a name decision that we made at like 4 a.m. at an ETH London hackathon. So that's kind of where it came about. Very crypto native. But basically, like essentially in version 1 of our smart contracts, you make regular deposits and you get to take the interest from the pool. If you miss one of those deposits, you forgo the interest, but you still like get your principal back. So the idea is it's actually an app that it's good to get ghosted on, because there's like so many bad ghosting apps, that we've, unfortunately all experienced in some form, whether it's like employment or dating or whatever. So this is an app we're actually going to be pleased when other people ghost you on it, because you're going to get their interest. So that's the good ghosting bit. Yeah.
I like this. That's really fun. Thank you. Yeah. What are the smart contracts? This is where I was just checking it out. I'm learning about this. Is fantastic.
Oh, so for so this is actually kind of fun in a different way. I'm ready. We're gonna sort of put you on the spot. I'm actually gonna share my screen here. Because I have the good ghosting GitHub right here. Don't worry, we're not gonna ask you. Be like, hey, how do you run the tests? Like, what's the but
what's the integration test like on that?
Yeah, what's the how gas efficient is this? Hold on, let me see if I have the right. This is the one I would like to share. So this is the repo, and so since this is a very developer friendly call that we're doing here, this is really cool. So you guys are really active here. We can actually even pop into your contracts. When I was looking at your oh my god, I love how you have the mock folder. Oh my gosh. So for those of you who are looking for efficient ways to test, please use mocks. Mocks are a wonderful way to make your tests run faster. You can check out any of the Chainlink starter kits. They have a ton of different mocks in there. But in any case, if we go to the main contracts here, it looks like the good ghosting and good ghosting Polygon. Oh, interesting. I'm curious, is the contract on Polygon different than the one on mainnet? I don't know if you.
I will caveat this. I worked on the smart contracts like right in the beginning when we were like prototyping it. But my kind of, to be honest, I haven't really been coding for the last 6 months, not substantially. I kind of jump in and do quick fixes. But my role when we built the MVP was much more around like the front end. The front end isn't actually on GitHub. But yeah, I built all the kind of React front end, like the Web3 integration and all this type of thing. But I am taking a bit of a step back. But that's kind of been my role in it. So in terms of the smart contracts, I'm probably not going to be the best person to answer those questions, because we have like a really experienced CTO called Francis, who's been kind of taking the lead on that, and also Viraj, who's also a back-end developer who's working on that as well.
I got too excited. I saw code and I just immediately went, oh, I want to play with this. I want to look at this. And then I saw Aave too, and I was like, oh my gosh, I've done so many like Aave composability. But so like your protocol is like literally the definition of like what DeFi composability looks like, right? Like you're hooking in to other DeFi protocols, and like what we saw right there, you had a folder for Aave and you said, hey, we're gonna use the Aave contracts. Here's how we're gonna do it, and boom, we're gonna make this really cool protocol.
Does it farm on Aave? Is that where you get your yields mostly?
Exactly. So with version 1, it's Aave on Polygon, and we also use Moolah on Celo. So we're on Polygon and we're also on Celo. Moolah is kind of similar to Aave, but basically only our smart contract's going to interact with that. So like you as an end user, you don't need to go to the Aave interface and interact with it. So like basically it's all going to be handled by our smart contracts. We move the pool onto Aave to generate some interest and yield there as well. But we will be adding more DeFi products in the future. So just opening that up. So it's going to
I
be a
suspected
wider range of
Aave
risk.
because of the ghosting, because their
Yeah.
logo is a ghost. And so I was like, oh, this is a composable thing, but I didn't want to make an
Yeah,
assumption.
yeah,
I'm glad I was right.
yeah.
I love their swag too. Anyways, I don't
So-
have
They
any.
do
but I
have
want some.
good swag, good parties. They're doing like a good merch setup.
Wait, good parties. Have you Aave parties? Wait, I want to go to an Aave party.
I
When
think they're all in London. All their parties are in
Right,
Europe.
all
I
their
don't think they
parties
throw
are-
parties here.
Yeah,
At
right.
least
They
not
do
that
one
I've
in. There was one in Lisbon. It's like it's a rave. There was one in Lisbon, one in Paris. I think they also had one in Finland as well. But yeah, I think they're all EU based at the moment. Maybe they're going to come stateside. I can't say.
Andy, we got to go to London so we can go to Aave Good Ghosting Party.
I'm in. I've always wanted to ride the
I'm-
tube.
I'm so game with this. So something else where my nerd senses are tingling and I wanted to pick it up. So you said you did a lot of the React stuff on the front end. I'm curious, what are your thoughts on kind of like in the coming year in 20, we just had a crazy year, 2021. In the coming year of 2022, what are some of the most exciting, or what are the tools that you most interested in for like the front end tooling with Web3?
Is this the note card thing, Patrick, where we like write it down and then reveal?
Well,
Or
this
do you have something for later for that?
I have something for later for that because you can't
Okay.
participate in this one because you're
Okay,
I don't know.
so this one is what are your favorite front end tools to look forward to? All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So like so I guess like what I'm looking forward to, and I have to say, caveat again, I am not like super involved with the front end anymore. Just like better tooling around. I think one of the things that can be hard as a front end developer when you come into this space is there is a lot of information about things, but in quite a siloed way. So like actually getting up this joined up, like, okay, I've got a smart contract now. How do I get it to connect to my React front end? Like even having that mental model of like how Web3 works, like because obviously it's different to like a HTTP call, and that's kind of the model that you're used to, and OAuth and things like this. So I think definitely things like Wallet Connect is making it like way better to like add on like way more wallets, which is going to actually like improve the user experience. Something I would like to have more of is like actually finding how to do the testing. So we do spend like a lot of time as a team like doing kind of manual QA. It's quite time consuming, particularly because like and we've been a little bit cautious also in terms of like integrating wallets, mainly because we have quite a time sensitive component to our application. So we don't want to integrate something that's not going to work and somebody can't actually make that deposit, that week or that month, because they're still going to like, it doesn't matter if it's not our fault, like to them, it's, they're still going to be annoyed.
Smart contract executes, right? That's what it does.
Yeah, exactly. And then we can't switch it off. So yeah, I'm actually looking for like more kind of like end-to-end, more QA tools for the front end, because we are spending quite a lot of time doing that and like actually getting that like we're running a load of kind of more unit tests, more testing, but like getting the kind of testing framework set up for the front end would be something that's going to make our process a lot better. But yeah, I'm curious, like Patrick, if you've got any front end things that I should be aware of. Like you're way more down in the developer ecosystem, so. Yeah,
well, so the front end testing. So the front end testing in the Web3 world is tough. And for most of the demos that I do, I actually don't even bother with the front end testing, which isn't great. But most of the education that I'm trying to do is like with Solidity. So all of my tests are like, okay, cool. Here's how you mock your Chainlink price feed or your VRF or whatever. I love testing in Solidity. It's like, it feels so good when everything passes. But yeah, the front end testing that's hard. It's hard. It's long. So I feel your pain, basically.
Yeah. Help me get it straight in my head. When you do manual testing, that means like plugging in every weird possible user interaction that could potentially happen that some user could imaginatively do and see if it breaks your system. Is that basically it?
Yeah. And if you can imagine our setup, because we have these games that have different periods where you need to make a deposit in. So we've got to like deploy a test contract, set up the front end, set it up with all like the contract address and variables for that. Then like step through and like make sure that each stage it's like people can deposit, people can withdraw, like go through to the end, and then like it's all happening on a time basis. So if you encounter a bug or something that's an error, then okay, you're like, okay, shit, the contract's gone on to the next stage of the development. So then we have to like deploy it again. It's kind of, because we have this time element, it does bring a bit of like frustration sometimes. But yeah,
like we do an extra variable, right? It's an extra variable, and you gotta like do it precisely. That
and
makes
you feel
sense
like you're like testing underneath the clock sometimes. You're like, I've got to find the bug quickly. I've got like 10 more minutes before it changes state. But yeah, like we do a lot of front end testing, and it's time consuming. So anyone who has any tips or like any ways to improve that, please let us know, because I'm always down for that.
Yeah, devs in the chat, this is your chance. This is your chance to jump in and work on some give some feedback, and maybe even work on something really cool. So Rachel, so I do have another question about kind of your transition from being more developer-y to kind of, as you're saying, you're like, hey, I've been taking a step back. I've been doing a little bit less coding. And I know a lot of developers, especially in this space, this is a very entrepreneurial space, right? There's so many people who are like, hey, I'm going to launch this thing. I mean, we just wrapped up the Chainlink Hackathon, 289 insane projects. All of them could be like a startup tomorrow. What's that transition look like, going from like, hey, like you building the code, I know, you doing a lot of developer advocacy work, to you saying, okay, well, now I got to do a lot of this not coding stuff. What's that transition look like?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think actually, if you are in developer relations, it probably does actually give you quite a good starting point to do this, because there is quite a lot of overlap in terms of what you're doing when it comes to like public speaking, like just kind of telling stories and getting people on board with what you're doing. Because we do a lot of presentations. We're kind of trying to get constant buy-in for what we do. So developer relations and spread the word.
So what you're saying is everyone should be a developer advocate. A developer advocate is the best role on the planet. That's what you're saying. I got it.
It's an amazing role. It is. If you want to get into, it's not a bad role if you want to get into being a founder. Like, honestly, it does kind of set you up being, you're technical, but you're also, business facing as well, community facing. So that does help. But yeah, it's an interesting one. And I think there's always this moment of pain when you're kind of hiring, but you have a lot of non-technical tasks. You're pitching, you're fundraising, you're like building marketing strategy, and then you're having to like dive into a bug, and then it's just that context switch can be quite hard. And even like hiring takes time. Like you're like, I have too much work, but to hire is like not super straightforward, and train someone up. So there's definitely like a few crunch points. So it's a bit like, okay, like trying to get there. But it's good. It's good. It's just, I mean, yeah, I enjoy it. Like I've enjoyed it. Like I think definitely when you're a founder, you get to see like a lot of touch points. So that's obviously kind of interesting, having that perspective. It really does challenge you. Like until this year, I'd never done pitching, like not on a serious way. I'd done it at hackathons, but like actually pitching, speaking to investors, like dealing with operations as well, and all this type of thing. So it is good, but yeah, it's you're constantly doing things that you've never done before, which I suppose is a good position to be in as well.
So then go ahead, Andy.
Sounds like a average month at Chainlink, always doing something you've never done before.
Yeah.
What am I doing this month? Okay, here we go.
Average second.
I did think of something I'm excited for developer stuff, Patrick.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay, Andy, I'm ready.
Because today we were talking to, I heard from Steven, DevRel team, and he was talking about, one of your guys' success stories as a DevRel team was to make code that developers could just go to the docs and copy what they need. Like, you don't have to learn how to do everything every single time. You're just like, I just want this thing, copy, paste it, run it, and then figure it out. And so I'm excited for more of that. Like, it seems like that's what a lot of people are looking for. And just to see how you guys were thinking about that. Some people need to start from free code camp, Patrick level 1 at the beginning. Some people just need like, what's the thing? And like type the first 2 letters into the browser and it opens up to the page you need and like get what you need. So I'm really excited for more developer education. For me, my job, like I talk to projects that build. So the more projects that build, the more cool people I get to talk to. So that is what I'm excited about, Patrick. I'm excited about developer relations.
Oh my goodness. Andy, never thought you'd feel like that. Me too, man. Yeah, like just having more people in the space, doing more stuff, building more crazy, insane protocols. like good ghosting, right? And like going from, oh, hey, we're kind of like a hackathon project. It's midnight in London, and okay, now we're securing something. Like what do you got? Is that right? You're at like a million in total value at least secured almost. Is that what you're up to?
Yeah, I think it's around 800,000 that's been like saved in our smart contracts. So yeah, it's nice to see that, and we've got like around like 12,000 like players in the game. We're just crunching the numbers to work out how many unique, because we have a lot of people who've kind of come with us, like done like 15 pools of us and hit all their saving goals there. So it's great to see that we're building up this like kind of long-standing community, and I think actually a couple of them are on this call. So like big props to them, and
welcome.
really appreciate. Yeah. I'm curious to ask though, like, was there any like really cool projects just from now I'm not in the developer relations world, like what cool stuff is being built at hackathons that you saw?
What cool stuff is the list goes 289 projects long, exactly. That's how many really cool projects. So like the projects that we saw absolutely blew us away, and I'm like trying to get on calls with some of them because I'm like, okay, we need to, how do you go farther, faster, sooner? One of my favorite ones was this one called Governor C. And so this is going to get a little bit nerdy, and this is why it's one of my favorite ones, because it was really, really nerdy. It's so for those of you who are familiar with like DAOs, we know that most DAOs can operate with token governance, right? You have your token, and it's, you vote yes or no and stuff. Most DAOs that do that model follow what's called compound governance, and they follow the Bravo version of like these compound governance contracts. Now, this group came up with Governor C, or Governor Charlie, to be like the next iteration, where they use Chainlink VRF as a random sampling method for voting. So one of the issues in voting is not everybody votes, because they're like, I don't care. My vote is an insignificant portion. So like what, and this, I'm super way glossing over the idea, but one of the ways to help combat that is you do random sampling voting. So you randomly sample people, so their vote counts much more, so they're more incentivized to actually vote. And they use Chainlink VRF to do that. And I was just like, well, that's just such an interesting thing. And that is something that would be really hard to do in the kind of the meat space, because the whole time you're like, please don't mess up that random number generation and screw the whole election. So I thought that was really cool. There was a really, really cool project that was a DeFi exchange that used almost like this almost like trickle method of trading to basically get rid of MEV. So just instead of sending your transaction once and then people can sandwich you and front running you and stuff, you send it at like weird times using Chainlink external adapters, which was really cool. There's some really cool games. Obviously, the grand prize winner, Music, was. I'm going to slow down because I keep going. Andy's like, yeah, man, yeah, like, yeah, so many.
The governance one is really interesting. There's so many. We were talking about this, I feel like a couple of days ago. There's so many different governance models that have been like proposed in the general literature of political science and political theories for millennia, and now we have the tools to do some of those things. Some of those experiments are live in the wild in other, actually nation state geographies and democracies, but you can test even more. You can drill down to these levels, time sensitive, random sampling, voting, and all this sort of stuff. It's just fascinating. I love seeing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of like a jury service, but for voting in a way, like you randomly get called up. It's interesting. It's super interesting.
I had jury duty a couple weeks ago. I didn't cancel anything because you have to call in every day and be like, am I going? And so people kept booking meetings with me. I'm like, okay, but I might disappear. I didn't get called. I called in every day. I did my job, but I didn't have to go. So didn't cancel anything. I got a couple of cool questions here in the chat. Tippy had one. I'm going to get to yours in a minute, Tippy. But I want to talk about Wes's for a minute, and maybe you guys can talk about this, because Wes, I feel your pain. I don't know how many times I've started. I've told Patrick about this. How many times I've started like, today's the day. I'm going to be a developer, and then I can't set up my environment right. Things go wrong. I can't find the page to Google my specific systems, and by then I'm lost in the weeds, and I've got other stuff to do. So I don't. Can you guys give us some tips, like for those of us starting out? Like, how do you deal with this environment question and making sure you're on the same page as your tutorial and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, this is Rachel. We'll be tapping into those DevRel chops, warming those back up. But yeah, and this is one of those frustrating things. And in that free code camp video, that 16-hour video, when we move from Remix to VS Code and we say, all right, it's time to install Python, it's time to install Node.js. If you're a new developer, all of that is frustrating. Like it can be really frustrating. If it works the first time, for whatever reason, your computer is super lucky, because 80% of the people I've worked with, it hasn't worked the first time. And it's something that I'm constantly looking for better ways to like set up environments, because actually getting in and coding is usually the easier part than like the downloading of the software, which is like a terrible, like that should be the other way around. Like downloading the software should be like, click this button, you're good to go. Now the hard part is the coding. But for me, it's usually like, okay, like, gosh, I got to download this new software. I hope it actually works. Which yeah, it can be really frustrating. Oh, thanks for the plug there on the free code camp video. So I'm with you, Wes. More building the environment to work with. And see, the thing that's kind of tricky is there's so many environments. There's like so many flavors of Linux. There's Windows. You have Mac OS. You have a bunch of people trying to download a 50 gigabyte file on like an 8 gigabyte Raspberry Pi, and they're like, why does this not work? There's all these different troubleshooting stuff that you run into. And this is where a lot of these cloud solutions that are coming out, I think, are going to be fantastic to help this, right? Because instead of downloading Python, downloading Node.js, downloading all this stuff, and your computer goes, like something's wrong, you're now screwed. You just click a button and it pops you into some virtual environment that has all this stuff already spun up. I think that is going to be super helpful. But until we have that, Wes, I think you're right. I think we do need more. Hey, here's how you get set up. Here's how you get going. And yeah, that's a great point.
Are those virtual environments, are those pretty slow, or does that just depend on speed of your computer?
Well, it depends. So like Remix actually has some like interesting tools that allow you to like do JavaScript in them, and it's really quick, which is really good. Another one that's pretty popular in the space is Replit. And they're pretty quick too. I've done some stuff in there. Yeah, they're really quick. And
can you spell that? I'll look it up. And
yeah. It's like
Replit. And that's just grown a lot. Replit, hasn't it? Like I remember doing like it was like a very simple like JavaScript IDE and now it's like there's all these different setups like Node. I think Solidity. Like every time I go there's like more sophistication built in. So that's amazing to see.
Yeah, and I think these are some of the tools that are going to help the people who are like, hey, like downloading this stuff is a nightmare. So you go, okay, great. Come to this IDE that has it all for you. And I think that'll be like even like Git pods is another one that's coming out. Etherscan, for those of you nerds who are here, which I hope it's a lot of you, Etherscan just in integration with like VS Code, where you can go to a verified contract on Etherscan and you can pop into like a VS Code in the browser and mess with the contracts like in a VS Code environment, which is
nice.
Which is it like came out like this week, and I was blown. I was like, what?
That's interesting. I've messed with the contracts on Etherscan. You like put in the fields and stuff like that, and I'm always like, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Like, just click the button on here, and then it always feels odd. So I don't know, maybe it'll even feel weirder to me from a interface, but who knows? It'll feel more official.
I love it. Yeah. So Rachel, yeah. Any thoughts there?
No, like I just agree with that. Like, I mean, also like if you can, I know there's some various. I'm sure you've probably written one as well. There's like a number of kind of boilerplate setups. If you can find your way around those, particularly if you're doing like a lot of hackathons, like try and set one up ahead of time, because like once you're in there, the configuration, and I also struggle with this, and it's frustrating because it's normally something that's stupid, but like it's not like something that you can kind of, you want to get in and start thinking about like the language and like what you're building, and you're just like stuck with some strange configuration error. So yeah, these kind of cloud setups I think will be really helpful, and boilerplates as well. If you know your way around one, then like get one that works for you and keep it going with that.
Let me present a counterpoint.
I love
though.
Yes, and
here's the counterpoint is, so in martial arts, come with me to Kung Fu land. All the best stuff is like flipping around and doing hook kicks and spinning, and doing your Hadokens and jump uppercuts and all this sort of stuff. But you can't do that stuff right unless you spend time in the stances. Like, you got to sit in a horse stance and be bored and make your legs hurt, because you got to get like your butt in the right shape and your abs to work together, so that when you do the stuff, you have good form. So there is something to be said for like slogging through that environment stuff. That's stuff that I haven't done. So I'm like preaching to myself here. There is something to be said for doing that, because you're going to encounter that at some point, and to have some of those fundamentals, like know your file structures and stuff like that could come in handy. So, it's not all shortcuts and magic. There's got to be a balance of both, right? It's got to be fun enough to move forward and see progress, but at the same time, like, you got to spend some time in stance work. You got to do your stretches. Like, it's not the most fun part of working out. You don't get swole from doing stretches, but if you don't, you're going to get old like me, and you're going to pull something, and then that's a recipe for disaster.
I'm gonna counter argument that counter argument.
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah.
So on the other side of things, though, one could argue like, in order to operate a car, you should know what all the pieces in the car are doing, what everything's doing, and that's like your fundamentals. However, most people don't actually know how to operate the car. When their car breaks, they bring it to the mechanic, or they Google something, and then they're like, oh, I should have filled it up with gas or something like that. I think for the developers, it's actually the same thing. I don't know. Okay, I know from a high level how an operator system works, but I don't know how to build one. Like, I wouldn't even know. I would Google like how to build an OS if I were to try to build one myself. I think as a lot of these tools come out that abstract away a lot of this other stuff, you can be really successful without having to know all that low level stuff. You will be better with it, but I think it's only marginally better. I don't know if it's necessary versus like something like martial arts, where the stances are almost like necessary to do the next thing. I think a lot of like being a sysadmin wizard is not necessarily necessary to being a really good engineer. It will definitely help, and I highly recommend anybody in the chat to go and learn like 50 bash commands, because you will be better. But that's gonna be my counter argument.
Rachel, what do you think?
Gonna sit on the fence and say there's like a bit of both here, right? Certainly, like I don't know. It's sometimes you want to just get started, and like if you have like something that you want to build and you want to dive in and kind of use like a boilerplate or a cloud setup, and you're passionate about that, and that's going to help you do what you want to learn. Like for me, it's like if I got into programming having to learn everything from the operating system up, I probably wouldn't have done that, because like my interest in it when I got into it was more around like products and like. But then the more you kind of chip away at these things, like sometimes you're like, okay, I need to know how this works, and then you start to like find the value to unravel it. Because I've also seen people get into programming where they, and this can also actually be a blocker as well, where if you want to know everything or like understand everything, then that can also stop you from like just being bold and trying stuff. And I've seen that kind of be a pitfall for some new developers as well, where it's almost like I had to learn something because I didn't learn programming in school. I didn't even learn it in university. So I was learning it like age 30. So my experience of like academia and school was quite different. The subjects I was learning was quite different. It was more like humanities based. So in that you kind of do all the reading and then you write the essay, right? Whereas I think with programming, it's like there's a little bit of a difference. Like sometimes you have to do the work to get the understanding, and you're working on something you don't quite know, and then afterwards you look back and you're like, okay, that's what it was, and you start to kind of connect the dots up. So yeah, I don't know. There's a bit of both, but like
I was a professor for a lot of years, and my students did not do the reading, and they still wrote the essay. And you could always tell when. I'm Patrick. Your metaphor of driving a car. I think you're right. If you need to get from point A to point B, you don't need to know how the car works. You need to know how to operate it safely and go. But as soon as you want to do something like different, you're like, man, how do I get going faster? That guy's over there is going faster. What do I do? It does help to have those. And so Rachel's right. It kind of depends on what you want to do. And if you get to a point where you need to push your limits, now it's like, okay, you got to move on there. So I feel good. Like we had a little resolve, a little debate and resolution.
That was
Oh,
great.
that felt good. Felt like a
like
Christmas miracle. It came together. Oh, I can't sing on.
We're just amazing conversationalists here. So
No. Tippy's got a question, or do you want to do your thing first?
We're on the same page, Andy. I was about to go back to Tippy too.
Well, because Rachel, you just alluded to like when you started coding and all this. Tippy's got this great question. Can you share a story from your early days learning to program that might empower people just trying to break into the career or as a hobby in general?
Yeah, no, definitely. So like I got into this, as I say, like when I was like much older, and like the whole time I was at school, it wasn't something that was really on my radar. It's kind of a weird thing. Like nobody told me I couldn't program, but I just never thought that I would. I guess there was no real kind of role models to see. Like it was quite like in my school, it was quite like a masculine area that everyone who was kind of programming was kind of boys, right? But then when I got into it, for me actually a lot of things happened to me when I was like going to meetups and connecting with people. So it was from that I got onto a coding boot camp, and I did this boot camp in London called Founders and Coders, which is a really amazing organization. Yeah, and the founder Dan was like, you should just apply, get onto this, and then that super helped me. And I was going to like a lot of meetups, and obviously now we can't really go to in-person meetups as much, but there's a lot of stuff happening online. And like I even with the current team we have in Good Ghosting, we all met online, and I've now met I've met like 2 out of 3 of my other co-founders face to face, but you can actually definitely connect with people remotely as well, doing like remote hackathons and stuff like that as well. So yeah, like I'd say just try and reach out to people, and also I find that people we're lucky to be in a space where people actually, a lot of people, I'm not saying everyone will, but a lot of people actually make time and sit with you, have coffee, actually help you. There's a lot of resources online. It's not like everything probably is there online somewhere if you know how to Google it or know how to find it. Like, of course, things like Free Code Camp is an amazing resource. And it's nice because we're not it's not like, I know in other industries, it's a bit more, you have to maneuver your way in and you kind of have to try and steal someone's job to get it. Like, whereas I feel like in tech and it's a little, we're not as competitive because there's a lot of work, and we can actually be, certainly in like Web3, we can be quite collaborative as well. So yeah, just jump into Discords, chat to people, get to meetups, and yeah, all of these things.
I'm going to confess something to you, Patrick. I actually have done development before. And I haven't done it for a long time, but when I did, I was the same as you, Rachel. Like I just resisted. It just wasn't something I was interested in, and it just didn't touch what I did. I was a social scientist, and it wasn't until there was something I needed to do, I needed to accomplish, and I was working in R. I was working in R in our studio, where if you actually want to do this graph, you have to put it in the R code format. And it's like, okay, well, what is that? Okay, I'll just do that. And then before long, I realized like, I'm doing it. I'm doing what you guys are doing. I'm developing, and so that really helped me, at least on that journey, is having something specific I wanted to do. So it's harder for me now to go in and be like, I'm going to learn everything about Ethereum and just know that. If I go in with a specific objective, like I want to be able to look and evaluate a contract for, how do they mint their token? Like, how many will they, what randomizer do they use? Do they use Chainlink? If I'm going in there with a really specific objective, that's what would help me. And like, I'm just trying to get something done. I'm not trying to learn coding for coding's sake. I'm trying to do something, and then you're in it and you just kind of figure out how to do it and you go to the next step.
Yeah, I'd actually add on to that. This is a kind of process that's been really helpful for me whenever I've needed to learn something or wanted to learn something. If I find it doesn't matter if it's like Solidity or like front end development, finding a kind of a good tutorial that kind of takes me through that, and then like following that step by step. But then whilst I'm doing that, kind of thinking in my head, like, okay, this has told me to do like a token, like I want to make a slightly different token that will be like having these characteristics. And then after I've done the tutorial step by step, recreating it, but like changing a bit so that it's got my own like take on it. Because I think when you've done both of those things, that you get the knowledge, but then you actually apply it, and that actually really, then you're in a position to kind of feel like more knowledgeable about it. So that's definitely an approach that I would recommend taking.
I think that makes a lot of sense. So something else that you mentioned kind of during your story too, which I wanted to just briefly touch on. So you're saying, hey, when I was in school, it was a very masculine area. And then Tippy also alluded to this. He said, hey, like a friend of mine who's a girl is looking to get into DevRel, but I don't think he said this, but I have heard stories of people saying, hey, like it's a little intimidating when you see like just a panel of men who are kind of like the ones who decide whether or not you get hired. And we had a panel actually of women in blockchain for our hackathon. Melody put it together. Thank you so much, Melody. Which was great, but it's something that I'm constantly thinking about. I'm wondering if you have any thoughts, like why is it such a masculinely dominated space? Are there ways that are there tips for women trying to enter the space to make it easier? Because obviously you've done it and you're doing incredibly well. Are there any tips there or any thoughts there?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, it's a problem in tech generally. We see it not just in crypto, but maybe in terms of like blockchain development as developers, it might even be less work less diverse than in regular tech. I'd be interested to see the stats on that. How can we make it better? It's a question like a lot of people ask me. And I think there are like a lot of like amazing initiatives. Like today, I just did a talk for SheFi, which is a program to kind of onboard women into DeFi. And I know there's like a number of these groups where like it's going to help whether you're learning as a developer or just even learning to use the tech. I think that's really important, supporting those groups. And actually, even if you're, if you want to be an ally and get involved, like actually seeing if you can actually help out and support those groups is really good. Just trying to think. Sometimes this might be a little bit controversial. I feel
I love controversy.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
I feel in blockchain, sometimes we idolize a certain type of development, and it's more like the more smart contracty you are, the more respect you get, and like almost like the deeper you are into like kind of infrastructure, like, because I mean, it makes sense. This is kind of where blockchain started to be. But sometimes there's a feeling like, other parts of development aren't always respected enough, or like they don't put, like, it's not seen to be like, you hear comments about, oh, it's JavaScript or it's just front end, it's easy. And I think that is really disparaging, and it's something we should avoid, because trust me, it's hard to write a front end when you've got to deal with like asynchronicity, UX, Web3, everything.
Who are you talking to that is saying JavaScript is easy? Who are these people? You're speaking to.
You hear it around that. You hear it around at like hackathons and stuff. Sometimes it's not like it's not something you can't quite put your foot on it, but quite put your finger on it. But sometimes I feel there is this kind of idea that like, infrastructure, like protocol engineers are like the real engineers, and I think, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I think there is like a sort of like a feeling around that, and I think if we can actually like encourage like really good like front-end developers, really good like JavaScript developers, really good full stack developers. I also think getting these good developers on will actually help us solve some of the UX problems we have. Because like the other thing I believe is I don't think we can solve the UX problem unless we make the front-end developer experience better. Because at the moment it's like hard to develop and it takes up a lot of time configuring wallets, and then you can't iterate and you can't build things quickly. And I think sometimes like maybe if we kind of just recognize it takes all types of developers to kind of build these products that we want to see. So yeah, that's my slightly.
That. Absolutely. There's a feeling. So I'm a marketer, and the marketing is thrown under the bus the most in crypto, right? It's like, we're gonna build a thing. So. What about your marketing? I don't know, we'll figure that out. I don't know. We'll hire somebody. You can find a marketer anywhere, and you can find a crypto marketer anywhere, but you can't find a good one everywhere. And there's so much schlock in this space and spam. You guys all see it. You know where it is. And that's not good marketing. That's bad marketing. So to find somebody good, you got to bring them in. But there's this feeling of that just because you've seen bad stuff doesn't mean it's all bad. And finding somebody really good is really hard. Somebody asked me maybe a couple of days ago, what's like the gold standard for marketing for me? And here's what I'm looking at. And just to I'll tie this back around. But if you go on Google or go to YouTube and search Chainlink, you'll see all the videos that come up. I want Chainlink Official to come up because I know we've got educational resources. We've got good information. We've got, trying to get people to the right place to build real things. But you go and see what we're competing against. So when front-end developers and user experience kind of gets like, we'll get to that later. I absolutely agree. Like, it's got to be a wholehearted effort. It's an industry-wide thing. the industry is mature enough now, and the projects are mature enough now that we really got to take a wider approach, and that automatically will bring in a diversity of opinions, a diversity of people, a diversity of backgrounds, because there's more people in the space in general.
And documentation as well. That's like something that's super important. Like, and yeah, the kind of developer like education piece as well, bringing in a background to developer relations as well. But yeah.
Oh wait, I love this. I love this train of thought here, because yeah, there is a little bit more. I wish we had like a hardcore like, no, like smart contracts are all that matters. Because yeah, like actually normally when I get on my so I do a lot of like technical advisory for like small projects. A lot of them hackathon projects. They're like, hey, like how do we launch our thing? And like 80% of the time I go, the success of your project will be dominated by how good your marketing team is, period. And a lot of them are like, no, though, we'll be the best because we have the best product. And then I go, I promise you that is not how this works. That is guaranteed is not how this works. Having a good good developer experience, but a good user experience, good marketing team, that's going to be the success of your product. And you damn well better also have the best product. You damn well better also have the best
it's
product.
real hard to market garbage. I've tried to sell some real stinkers, and that's why I'm here now, because you don't have to do that. It's nice when the product speaks for itself, but to make sure people are thinking about it in a productive way is a different job than like try to market pure dog shit on fire on your front porch situation.
Well, so something that Rachel, I don't know if you were alluding to this, but this is what I was picking up, and then correct me if I'm wrong, that I thought was really interesting. You were saying, hey, like a lot of people think that the infrastructure developers, those are the real developers, and front end is hard, which again, whoever is saying JavaScript is easy, I'm going to disagree with you very starkly. For anybody who follows me on Twitter knows how I feel about JavaScript. I'm coming around to TypeScript, but that's because it's typed. But it's interesting because that's how you answered when the question was about like women in tech and women in blockchain.
Yeah.
So why was that the route we went down? It almost felt like you're saying like, yeah, go ahead.
That's interesting. I mean, I guess it comes from my experience being a JavaScript developer and coming from front end. You know what I mean? So I feel like I didn't have this experience of, I'm not somebody who sort of learned to program when they were 5 and did a computer science degree. And like, there definitely, because I feel also you're going to say like, women aren't just, there's definitely women who do that, but I can speak from my experience. But I think if we want to make it more, I guess, if we want to even it out, because the truth is like, if we look at the demographics, the number of women at this point in their career who had that trajectory that I just mentioned about it, computer science degree and 20 years of programming, it's just less than there are men. You know what I mean? So if we want to at this point in time make it more equal, we actually have to like take more people in like myself who like maybe didn't like learn to program super young, learn JavaScript, and then actually we can like onboard them. So just to tie you around back then, it's definitely not everyone's experience, but I'm just kind of speaking from my own and like solutions that we can bring in now actually to kind of onboard more technical women in the space, because you definitely don't need to have had that background. And I think sometimes there is a myth that you needed to have done that. But the truth is there's just so much work for developers. We can like get more developers like any, and like maybe having a different perspective can actually put you in a stronger position in some ways. Like it's always good to, of course, it's always good to have the fundamentals and anything, building that kind of knowledge up. But I think it's like, yeah, I guess that would kind of be my take on it and why I kind of went down that angle. But it's very much kind of positioned from my own experience.
Yeah, no.
Something this reminds me of is I think there's a difference between people who are technical and people who are developers and coders. And you can be technical without being a coder, and that's actually still important in the space. And by being tech, because I used to say that like, oh, I'm not technical. That's not true. I know how a consensus system works. I don't know like the numbers, and I didn't verify the algorithm myself through my own bootstrapping. But I understand how that works, and you can understand like there is a proof and just generally how it works, you can be technical and read real white papers, Chainlink 2.0 white paper, and understand like how these mechanisms work. And being technical, that is something different from development, and that's a great start for a lot of people, is to go down that path and just understand how systems work too, and that broadens it much more broadly. And those roles are really, really important, because that lets you evaluate systems and how they work. Does this DeFi system, does it make sense? The governance, does the economics of it work? Because you understand how things work on top of a larger, consensus system, things like that.
Yeah, and I think that's where we're actually in a really interesting place right now, because I feel like the whole ecosystem's evolved so much that we actually need like people coming in who are technical, who can think at things like on a systems level, but aren't necessarily developers, who have like knowledge of like economics, who have knowledge of like governance, of like, anthropologists. Like that's actually like a very valuable skill when you look at like DAOs, right? So I think now it's kind of, we need a lot more people to get involved and bring their perspectives, like to just make it more, suited for the mainstream, I guess. It's getting broader each day, I think, for sure.
All we want for Christmas is you, all of you, to join Web3.
Everyone get involved.
And be technical or not technical, whatever.
Patrick, what's your question of the day?
Oh, what? You think I have a question of the day? Well, you're right. I do have a question of the day.
Because we got 10 minutes.
We have 7 minutes, so we got to do the question of the day quick. So Rachel, what we've been doing on these calls, we talk. Oh, you were prepared. I have an office.
I have a desk.
I still have junk mail that I'm writing on. I still haven't gotten any paper. So what we've been doing is we'll ask a question either about 2021 or 2022, about something we're excited about, or what was our favorite moment from. For this one, especially because good ghosting and everything that you've been doing, you're so into the DeFi space now, and you're so you understand composability, DeFi, what it's all about from a very, very fundamental level. My question is going to be, in the year 2022, what is something that in the DeFi space you are incredibly excited for? Is there a tool that you're incredibly excited for? And I'm going to ask if good ghosting is the answer, great. But I'm really hoping to hear why, if good ghosting answer, or is there some idea, is there some protocol that needs to be launched, or something that you're crazy excited for in the DeFi space for 2022? And the way we're going to do this, we're going to write it on a piece of paper. On the count of 3, we're all going to flip it around and we're all going to show. Sorry, so maybe your answer is...
You're going to write on a bit of paper for me. Do I need a bit of paper right now?
You need a bit of paper, yes.
Okay, let me give me 1 second. Let me just find something.
We put everybody on the spot, and yeah, nobody has had paper because we're all digital.
I have paper every time. I have paper. It's an office.
Andy has paper. It's an office. I have.
But I'm always the oldest one here, so I think that says something.
I've got like a plane ticket, surprisingly enough.
Perfect.
I suppose that would do.
Okay,
like, oh god, this is putting me on the spot. Like,
yeah,
and now she's been looking for paper. She hasn't had time to think about it. So I have one, because I had paper. I was prepared. But last time Patrick's like, write 3 things down, and then we had to get and go all around.
I was talking while people were writing. I was like, wasn't keeping it boring the whole time.
No, it was exciting.
But
I love every one of these, Patrick. I'm having the most fun doing these year-end wrap-ups.
They're
do it next year.
It's like a little fun thing for everybody. It's like, ooh, what are they going to do? What are they going to pick? So I have mine. What I'm most excited for. Andy, do you have yours?
Of course.
Rachel, do you have yours?
Oh, my brain is freezing.
No.
You guys go, and then I will do. You guys go.
We'll give you. No, we all have to flip at the same time. So
we all flip at the same time.
We've all flipped at the same. So we'll give you time to think about it, right? So Andy and I will talk about whatever, right? There's so many crazy things in the DeFi world that have yet to come, or have we hit it? Do we have everything, Andy? Is that maybe?
No, we don't have everything.
No.
Yesterday, I said one of my favorite things is going to be the thing that hasn't been invented yet that I don't know.
Yeah, you did say that yesterday.
I don't know. So this is something that I do know about. It started this year. But it hasn't been like in major production anywhere yet that I've seen. And I'm sure it's being done somewhere, but not as like a major theme. But I'm excited for it to become a major theme, and I think it's underutilized right now.
And Tippy, yes, people in the chat, write what you're most excited for 2022 for DeFi. What are you most excited about? What do you think is the thing, the protocol, the whatever that's gonna be like, Oh my goodness, that is absolutely insane. Now, I will preface. No, I'm not going to preface. I was going to say I'll preface mine, but I feel like
I thought of another one.
Give it away. What's up?
I thought of another one. Go ahead.
You can't have two. That's
right,
against the rules. I'm just kidding. There are no rules here. We do whatever we want to do.
I had kind of two. I also kind of had two, and I've crossed one out, and it's all getting messy on my ticket. Oh,
yes.
Writing on the other side.
No. Keep it. No, keep it as is. Wait. That makes it more fun. I want to see like the thought process of like, this is it. No, wait, no, there's a better one. Yes, this is it. So, all right. So, Rachel, I'm going to ask you to stop and you to do exactly whatever you have.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh my God, we have 3 minutes left, and we have 3 minutes left.
Okay, go.
So, all right, on the count of three, we're going to flip it up. Audience, I also see you posting in the chat. That is fantastic. What do you think is the most exciting DeFi thing for 2022? On the count of three. 1, 2, 3. What do we do? NFTs as collateral, cross-chain DEX, and a plane ticket.
Yeah, plane ticket. I'll read it out because it's actually hard to do. I put like under collateralized loans. I'm super interested in.
Oh yeah,
and also like seeing like the evolvement of like investment DAOs as well. Something I'm really interested to see.
The one that I opted not to because I was restricted to one was DID, decentralized identity, which is that's under collateralized loans. Like that's kind of that tie-in that you need, and I know projects are building that and working on that. So that is a really exciting area.
And Vitalik, relatively recently in the last couple months, he put out like a post of like proof of personhood and stuff, and I'm like, oh my God, these are these wonderful, crazy problems that once we solve them, under collateralized loans is something that I'm always like. I go back and forth on it. It's something that will come, right? Because if you believe in the narrative that we're speed running finance, right, that's kind of the natural progression. But it terrifies me at the same time because it's like, like we have all these over collateralized, DeFi protocols, and it's like, they're great. They're all pretty much going to be solvent. But once you bring that under collateralized loan piece, it gets a little bit scarier. So that's something that you're excited for. You think that's going to come next year?
I think it's going to start coming. Yeah, definitely.
Really?
Definitely.
Who do you think?
Yeah.
Is Good Ghosting leading the charge? Is that like you like dropping a hint here or what?
Well, we're trying to get people to build better financial habits, so like, there could be something there in the future. Who knows? There's nothing concrete, but yeah.
I feel like she's hinting at stuff. And
I got another idea. I have not seen this anywhere in crypto. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but I haven't seen it. And it's huge in fintech is micro lending. That as a theme, when somebody figures out micro lending and under collateralization, maybe that's the key. Maybe like we're used to thinking about DeFi as like, okay, well you put in $1 million and you can take out $500,000. Like no, like start at micro lending levels where you deposit, $1,000 and then that's earning yield, and then you're borrowing $10 at a time and paying it back and like doing some of that. That might be where under collateralized loans make a little more sense too, if it's the ratios are flipped. And micro lending is really popular, and micro payments on fintech apps and that sort of thing. So that might be a natural integration for that industry as well.
So we are at 5 o'clock here. I want to dive into all these topics even more, but unfortunately, we have to go. We must go. Well, I must go because I have another meeting.
You always do.
We pretty much always do, right? That's the nature of the crypto world. But thank you everybody who joined us here. Rachel, thank you so much.
Yeah, here we go.
Thank you for having me. It's been great hanging out. Like it's awesome. Yeah, and thank you everyone on the call. Like there's some really good questions, really good comments, and yeah, it's fun to. It's my first time wearing like. This is like really a lot of Christmas stuff I've got on. Like it's good with the background as well. Like really feeling festive, which is awesome.
We're being funnier. Well, thank you all for being here. Rachel, thank you so much. Andy, thank you so much.
Hey, come back tomorrow, everybody. We're doing one more of these.
We're doing one more tomorrow. That's right. We're going to be on tomorrow with Angela from ZK Sync, which is going to be a blast. We're going to talk about layer 2s. We're going to talk about zero knowledge stuff. That's going to be an absolute blast. So thank you once again, Rachel, and see you all tomorrow.
Bye.
Thank you.